Good morning, Columbine.
Hi, Doug.
I'm the vice president of your board, and I'm here to introduce our speaker for today. And for you newcomers, you may have noticed this rogue fellow in the front row and wondered, what is he doing here? Well, I was trying to decide whether I was going to do this as a roast or more serious. And I finally decided, because of my Zen background, on the middle way. So anyway, this fellow started here in July of 2005 and was here until 2 years ago, and now comes back from time to time, and it's always so wonderful to have him here. Just love it. But I wanted to ask the newcomers especially, do you think he looks more like an accountant or a preacher? And I think we can all agree, at least, that he looks like he's had entirely too much free time on his hands.
That's true.
So he led us from the first days of this building, this beautiful building, and then he did all kinds of things back then. He painted walls, he changed light bulbs, he mowed the grass, I think, probably quite a bit. But primarily, he led us in and inspired us in the unity way with lots of good things, with wisdom, with vulnerability, and primarily with grace. And it is my great pleasure to reintroduce Scott Shell, our Minister Emeritus.
Good to be back. I'm not sure it was with grace, though. We had a lot of fun. We're going to try and have some fun today. I would suspect that most of you in this sanctuary today are here because the Unity teachings have benefited you, that you're feeling something different in your life than you were feeling when you came in. So often when we get on the spiritual path, step onto that path, we're feeling maybe powerless. Our life isn't very satisfying to us. There's some reason why we want more. And we come into the Unity teachings and we find out that we're not really victims of life, that in fact we are expressions of Spirit, and as such, Spirit is there to support us, that Spirit is a power within us, that we are powerful expressions, not victims. One of the challenges, though, that we have with the Unity teachings is that they are what we might say duality teachings. If you notice, there's always you and Spirit. But we have an opportunity on our spiritual path to come to realize that there is only Spirit. What we recognize as us is a familiar sense of self, what we call the ego. The ego gets a bad rap, but the truth is the ego is needed to get us through life, particularly early life. We need something like the Unity teachings to begin to lift us out of feeling victimized by life and beginning to allow us to relax. And as we relax, then we have the opportunity to learn that Spirit actually is everything. You are Spirit in action. And Spirit in action is fresh and dynamic. It's not familiar. And if you're feeling like you need the familiar, then we're caught. And so the question becomes, can we relax even more into who we are and trust? At the end of March, I had an experience that really helped me see that, yes, I can trust, that I'm not in charge here. Stuart and I had just arrived in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was late afternoon. We were there to celebrate my dad's 90th birthday. And I got a phone call. It was from a woman who identified herself as a social worker working with a longtime tenant of mine. He'd been my tenant for 18 years. And she had 3 surprising pieces of information. One, that my tenant was dying, not expected to live through the weekend. I knew that he had prostate cancer. I knew there were challenges with the cancer. But she explained that they, as a last-ditch effort, had put him on chemotherapy, and the first treatment had really wiped him out. I asked about his roommate. Is his roommate there? Because my concern came up. I'm not there. He has no family. Who's going to be with him in this dying process? No, she died earlier in the month. Then the third piece of information, you're his medical power of attorney. Which made some sense to me because he and his roommate, who were best of friends, didn't really socialize. They knew people in the building, but they never would have had dinner with them. They never would have done anything with them. So surprising information, and yet not unexpected information. She also let me know that she was off for the weekend, and so I would not know if Nick had died or not over the weekend until Monday morning when she got back in. Stuart and I came home on Sunday. Monday morning, yep, Nick rebounded. He's doing better. He's been off the chemo for a while. His body, which was very weak, has come back a little bit, so sure. And you know, I had felt bad that he was alone. I should also add that there was some sort of worldly things going on for me too, in that he and Deborah had not paid me rent for 3 months. So I knew that. I mean, we had talked about it. They were in their old age. They were having trouble writing checks. They'd asked if I could come down, write out the check. They'd sign it, you know. I said, oh, Stuart and I are going out of town for a month. We'll do that when I get back. So, of course, I've got some sense of judgment going on. Why did I wait so long, you know? So life is never simple. There's multi-layers. I was happy to find out he was still alive, hopeful that he could still sign a check. And in fact, I walked into his room. I drove down from Grand Lake to Denver, walked into his room. He said, hey, Scott, how you doing? We got to talk about what his wish. He acknowledged, this seems like this is the end. Won't be coming back to the apartment. Helped me understand what I should be doing for him as his medical power of attorney. I was able to find out from him that he had made no plans for death, so he wanted to be cremated, but he hadn't contacted anyone. So I said, well, it sounds like we need to sign some checks, which of course we laughed our heads off. Here's a guy on his deathbed, and I'm trying to get him to sign some checks. And the nurse came in and he goes, you'd be surprised at how many times this happens, you know. But we had a check signed. Then so that was cool, right? Like, did I do that? I would say no. Some people would say, wow, you must have been holding a really strong consciousness because, wow, you brought him back from the dead. And then you were able to get your payment, you know, and then I walked out of the room and he died. No. No, I don't. We'd like to believe in unity. We had something to do with that, right? Then the next thing was, is there any money in the account? And so we happened to bank at the same bank, incredible. The bank was super helpful. They can't tell you what the balance is, but they can tell you if a check will clear. The check will clear, and then I said, well, okay, now I need to arrange for a cremation, Can I spend $2,000 more? No. Can I spend $1,000? No. And I'm like, interesting. I called his social worker. Oh, I think I have his income here in my file. He makes $1,400 a month, paid on the first of the month. I said, well, let's hope he lives till the first of the month. We're just flowing with it, right? Just on it. So then I thought, well, I'll go check out the unit. And she had said, he told you, right, that he can't come back to the unit. Even if he miraculously lives through this, he can't come back to the unit. He's not going to be able to live independently any longer. So I walk into the unit. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was thinking that they would have left a few things there, right? But they had no time to do anything to prepare. And so Nick's crossword puzzle, half finished, was sitting on the table next to his favorite chair. The entire unit was as if they had just stepped out to go get coffee. And I was overwhelmed. Like, wow, they've been living here for 18 years. Everything of theirs. Neither of them, well, she had a daughter, but the daughter was estranged from her. So there was no one. I cleaned out the kitchen, which was in itself, it was starting to smell. So I thought, well, I'll just start in the kitchen. But then I opened up a bin. There were several bins stacked in the dining room. And I opened one up. It's full of photos. Turns out all the bins were full of photos. And suddenly, not only am I overwhelmed, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable. This is their entire life. Everything in their life is in this unit. And as I looked around, photo albums, scrapbooks, everything they valued. And I really became very uncomfortable. I thought, well, what if he has a miraculous healing and he comes back and I have thrown everything away or given everything away? And in that place, I drove back to Grand Lake. I needed to get back anyway, but have you ever been in that situation where you're almost paralyzed? Like, whoa, can I do this kind of thing in our lives? But then the next day, Nick needed to be rushed to the hospital, lots of abdominal pain, and first thing in the morning, the doctor calls me. Now, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. You know that this guy's dying, right? And I said to him, well, that's a relief. Because of what I had gone through the day before, right? He says, what? I said, I'm new on this scene here. I'm just getting involved in his life, and they've asked me to clean out his apartment, and I'm uncomfortable with it. He goes, well, yeah, he's for sure dying. And what are we supposed to do? And I said, keep him as comfortable as we can. And then as if I didn't get it the first time, the nurse called me in the afternoon. You know he's dying, right? Why did you even send him over? I didn't send him over. Well, you're his medical power attorney. You need to start taking charge here, Okay. Drove down the next day, met with the place. We just need to keep him comfortable. So I spent the next 3 days sorting through the apartment, got about halfway through, deciding, what's junk and what could be possibly donated. Also called, because they have, nice furniture. Anyone any of these charities want any of the furniture? Well, sure, but you need to get it to us, or you at least need to get it down to the sidewalk. I said, I don't think the condominium's going to like a whole, it's going to look like I evicted them or something. But on the third day, this is where it gets juicy. On the third day, I get a call from a friend, just checking in. How you doing? I told her what was going on for me. She goes, everything? Everything in the unit is there? It's an entirely stocked unit? I go, yeah. She goes, I was just at a dinner at my church last night where they introduced a couple from Venezuela who just came here with 3 kids. They'd managed to get an apartment, but they have absolutely nothing. They need everything. Can you put me in touch with them? I picked them up an hour later. I mean, this gives me goosebumps, right? Like, whoa. They were blown away. Everywhere they turned was something that they wanted, right? And they said, we can have everything? I said, everything. And we were like a well-oiled machine because I'd only made it through half the unit, right? So they went through what I had already sorted and said, well, take this, and they helped me. They put the stuff that they thought should be donated. They didn't need it. That was in one area. What they wanted was in another area. Then we took on the rooms that I had not gotten to yet. They didn't speak English. You know, these interpreting programs are incredible now. I could say something into their phone and it said it in Spanish. And so but they learned 2 really good words, right? I told them if they were going to keep it, no need to talk to me. But if they were confused as to whether to throw it away or donate, so they learned the word trash and donate. And we worked in the same rooms, and I'll tell you what, I'd been working 3 days. 4 hours later, I dropped them off at their shelter. The entire unit had been sorted through. The next day, I took everything that we decided would go to Goodwill to charity. I took it to ARC. And then the next day, I had rented a U-Haul. The husband came back. I went and picked him up. Stuart joined us, Stuart's niece, who speaks fluent Spanish. Thank you, God. We started around noon, and by 5, we had the unit emptied, moved into a garage where it was going to be stored till their apartment was available. Wow. I went and sat with Nick that evening before I went back to Grand Lake. I didn't go back to Grand Lake. Didn't go back till the next day, and he was unresponsive. And I wish I would have thought to have said, hey, here's what's come down. Instead, I just sat with him, but I think he would have been tickled. Be easy to take responsibility for it. I think, can't you just see you guys saying, wow, he's got some good consciousness, doesn't he? Wow, he's a manifester. Well, maybe, but I had see, the thing about manifesting is if we're holding an image for what we want, what's the nature of that image? Something we know. Something that we've either experienced in our lives, something we've witnessed someone else experience, something we've read about, something we've seen on TV. But you see, Spirit isn't limited by that. Spirit can make things happen. So in unity, we tend to, we'll find a way to take credit for it. Well, that was a God thing, but it happened through you. Or, wow, isn't the synchronicity of the universe amazing? Or, wow, that divine order really playing out. But we could also just look at it the other way and go, that was amazing. Yes, I was open and receptive, engaged, but the Christ in me did it. Because it was beyond what I of myself could do. And what's the benefit of that? You see, when we live in a dual relationship, we're just a separate individual trying to become more spiritual. And we effort. We work at it. And when it doesn't work out, we blame ourselves for it. Oh, if only I had affirmed 10 more times. Oh, if only my consciousness were better. When the truth is, you are an amazing expression of Spirit. And that's all you are. Now, yes, you've got a strong sense that you are an individual, separate individual that needs to be protected, and that our ego self, our separateness, works very tenaciously to not let us forget it, and the world around us would indicate that we can't forget it, that it's important that we stay, aware and sharp, or the world's going to eat us up. Life's going to eat us up. But when we begin to challenge that, we can begin to have trust that Spirit really is working for the highest. One of the things that erodes that trust in us is when we don't get flowers, right? When it doesn't go, when we plant the garden and we get weeds, when it's not going the way we thought it should go. The Bible says, in its great wisdom, God is not the respecter of men, or today we would say of humankind, or men and women. And what that means when you read the interpretation is that God's not here to make your life good, although God loves you, and God is goodness, and God is love. God is here to free you from what limits you so you can experience the pure potential of life. And so it doesn't always look the way we would like it to look. Like, for example, did you notice the reactivity in the story I told you? When I freaked out about getting rid of everything, there was something going on for me. That was perfect, right? And I went home and I was like, all right, Nick told me I could get rid of everything. The social worker told me, the doctor and the nurse. Why was I all locked up? Because when I thought about someone else going through my house and throwing everything away, it felt so empty to me, like I was nothing. And I thought I'd worked on that, but boy, there was some fringe in there that I hadn't seen yet. Or I'll tell you another example. I have a friend that's in the same spiritual program I am. He was in a retreat last weekend. He struggles with, his limitation is he thinks that people don't like him. So he's really, working on that. So they always have an opportunity for you to have lunch at the center in the break in the middle of the day. And so he took his lunch. He's going to have lunch there. He had to step outside. I don't know if he had a call or whatever, but he said, I got to the room where the lunch is late, and the 10 seats were already taken. And he said, don't worry, everyone just pulls up a seat on the corner. But he said the two people at the end were the two that I projected the most on, that they really didn't like me. In fact, I was angry at them because they never paid any attention to me, and I did not want to sit by them. Funny how the unfolding is, isn't it? No respecter of what you want, respecter of what is limiting you today. So, not wanting to look like an idiot and walk out of the room, he pulled up a chair. What happened, do you suppose? You can tell, right? The woman next to him at the end had a nice conversation with him. Then during the afternoon break, the other person at the other end came up and talked to him all of a sudden, which then shined a light for him of, oh, this isn't about those people. This is about my tendency to project that people don't like me. The universe never gives up on us. And so, one, I'm sure I've gone way over, and I apologize for that. No, I don't. That's right. I only get to speak twice a year now, so next time you'll know not to come if you want to get out on time. So that the whole, I think, invitation today is to realize that if you look back on your life and all those times you were sure that you had just really messed up or how it all worked out, to a T, it all works out. Especially if we stop pushing the river and say there must be a reason why this is happening. The wonderful Reverend Sky St. John, who happened to be in seminary with me, every time someone attributed something to him personally, he always pointed up. Not the me that you are looking at. It's something greater that is me, but not familiar. When we begin to trust, we begin to see that life is fresh and new. And like a friend of mine said this week also, my life is an adventure. I said, everyone's life has an opportunity to be an adventure when we can trust and know that God cares for us and loves us. Have a great day.